Hey everybody, welcome back to Vegas Tips and Tricks Weekly. Since we started this show about a month ago, we've been helping you plan a trip to Las Vegas, picking out the best time, the best length of trip for you, the best hotel, how to plan out an itinerary and choose activities that are going to be best for you. Today we're going to focus on a topic that is about as identified with Las Vegas as anything, and that's gambling. And we're not going to give you any magic formulas that are going to guarantee that you win big. What we're going to try to do is give you some advice that'll help you maximize your seat time, as my friend Kevin calls it. The time that you get to spend in front of that machine or at that table, feeling like, hey, I got some skin in this game, and perhaps enjoying a few cocktails along the way. Before I get started, I do want to let you know we will not be doing a show this Tuesday. As many of you know, and as all of you will find out in the weeks to come, there's a lot of transitions taking place in my life. I'm going to be moving, and the set behind you is probably going to change, at least in some respects. Maybe we'll talk about that in our live this month. In fact, I'm sure we'll talk about it in our live this month. But Tuesday's going to be like a big travel day for me, so I'm not going to be available to do a show. I'm not even going to try to squeeze it in somehow. So we've got Thursday. We'll do another one of our Las Vegas resort sort of capsule previews at that time. And I'm not sure about the podcast yet. We have been able to get a podcast out the last couple of weeks. So if things work, we'll try to do one of those as well on Thursday. That has seemed to work out pretty decently for me, at least. So I think it was just a couple of weeks ago we actually talked a little bit about gambling, at least in terms of setting a bankroll and deciding what games to play in our Vegas Tips and Tricks short. But we're going to stretch that out a little bit today. If you've never been to Las Vegas before, you'll be shocked, I think, by the fact that there are pretty much slot machines everywhere. At the airport when you arrive, if you stop at a gas station, convenience store, grocery store even, outside of maybe government buildings, the post office, churches. I don't think they have them at Walmart, but really there are slot machines almost everywhere. That's not an indication that you should play slot machines in sort of random locations. Generally speaking, it's thought that the slot machines that you find at these sort of captive audiences, whether it be at the airport or at a convenience store or something, they probably don't pay off very well. So it's generally considered good advice to avoid those places and wait until you get to one of the major hotel properties to actually play slots. I guess the question you might want to ask yourself is, do I want to play slots at all? As far as games in the casino, there probably aren't too many which have a higher take from the house than slot machines. What I mean by that is the slot machines are set up with random number generators to produce outcomes that are pretty predictable in the long run. Now, in the long run, as often been said, we're all dead. So that can change a lot. But in the long run, you can tell more or less what a machine's going to pay off. And most slot machines are probably no better than around 90%. So if you run $100 through that machine, you, in the long run, can expect to get about $90 back. Run the same $90 through it again, you're going to get $81 back. So you can see that over time, that it's going to take your money, and typically that's going to happen unless you just happen to get really lucky or unless you hit like a large jackpot. If you must play slots, then you might want to steer clear of some of those sort of flashy licensed slots. I know maybe you're a big fan of The Big Bang Theory or Game of Thrones or The Voice, or some sort of a branded character. Keep in mind that any of those machines are going to have to pay a licensing fee to the individuals or the show in question, and so that's likely going to reduce their pay even more. So, if an average slot machine pays 90%, Game of Thrones probably pays 85%, something like that. You're better off with those machines that are kind of generic. You're probably better off with those old real slots, the ones that still have the handles that you can pull, at least sometimes. They don't pay off as frequently. A lot of the new machines have a lot of bells and whistles, and it makes it look like you win big money every time, but typically you don't. You may bet $1.50 and the machine gets very worked up about the fact that you've won 65 cents of it back. That's no, coincidence. They're trying to get you excited about it. But so yeah, if you must play slots, you're probably better off with the most boring looking slot machine possible, and probably also one that has a lower jackpot. The machines with a high jackpot are going to take a higher percentage of all of your bets to feed that jackpot. The worst of the worst are games that pay potentially millions of dollars, because that millions of dollars gets paid for by hundreds of dollars from people playing those machines over the course of time. Of course, not all the machines in a casino are traditional slot machines. There are a couple of variations which we'll touch on here briefly. The first of those is video poker. And video poker is probably one of the best games you can play in the casino. Even the machines that pay off, rather poorly are probably still bringing in about 95%. Video poker, basically they deal you a hand and you try to improve it. You can hold between 0 and 5 cards if you like your hand, and you get paid by the quality of your hand, all the way from a royal flush down to a pair of jacks. Traditionally, video poker is of the jacks or better variety, so if you get a high card and you match it up, at least you get your money back. There are so many variations on video poker that we can't possibly cover those here today. But again, traditionally the jacks are better, or bonus poker is one of the simplest games to learn. And that is the thing about video poker. In order to maximize your success, you're going to have to do a little bit of studying. There's a lot of information online if you study video poker, or just, Google that. You can find a lot of good advice on how to play the game. But again, keep an eye on two things. One, the game itself. Some games are very different. The Deuces Wild game is much different from Jacks Are Better. And some games may have really high paybacks on certain hands, typically 4-of-a-kinds, but you will also notice that you don't get paid as much for the smaller hands. So much more volatile game. I myself love the double-double bonus game, but it is a game that's a little more like a slot machine in that it's really easy to go through a lot of money quickly, and so keep that in mind. The other thing to remember is not all the payback percentages on these machines are going to be the same, even within the same casino. So you definitely want to do a little research, find out what the best pay tables are, and look for those machines, or at least look for the best payback tables within the casino you're playing in. But definitely video poker, one of the best games you can play in the casino. It's usually always available at the casino bars, so it's a great way to hang out, hopefully at least break even for a while, and get a few cocktails. Now, another game I'll touch on briefly, a big favorite of mine, is Video Keno. And again, you can usually find that on those multi-game machines at casino bars. Sometimes you'll see a bank of those machines in the area of the regular Keno lounge, or just anywhere throughout the casino. Keno generally doesn't pay quite as well as video poker, but it's probably a better game on the machines than a regular slot machine. It also tends to take a little bit of time to actually, play out the game. You can usually bet between 1 and 10 numbers, and depending on how many of those numbers come in your game, you get paid a certain amount, and they'll choose between 1 and 80, 20 random numbers. And you might think it'd be pretty easy to get, 8 or 9 or 10 of them, but, the math does not work out that way. But, so Keno can be a lot of fun. It is a game that can be a little bit slower, and there are a lot of games where you can get paid back on fairly small hits that can keep you going for a while. Keno, like video poker, also has some big paying hands that don't come around too often, but again, it kind of simulates the slot machine experience, but with a slightly better payback. Now, traditionally, the best games in the casino tend to be some of the table games, and we're going to cover a few of those really briefly. First and foremost, we'll talk about blackjack, a game that almost everybody has played, even if you've never been in a casino. Blackjack, or 21 as it's called, is a really simple game to learn, but a difficult game to master. And throughout most of the history of Las Vegas, even someone who was not a particularly good blackjack player could get probably 97-98% paybacks off of the games. But some things have changed certainly over the last 10-20 years. Traditionally, a blackjack itself, which is a dealt ace and 10, pays 3-2. So if you bet $5, you get back $7.50. If you bet $10, you get back $15. And that helps to sort of balance the game out so that it's a little more advantageous to the player. But recently, they've changed the payback percentages on a lot of blackjack tables, particularly lower limit blackjack tables, to where they actually only pay 6-5 on a blackjack. And that raises the house edge quite a bit. So keep an eye on that. You're more likely to find a 3-2 payback blackjack table, particularly at lower limits, at downtown or at some of the off-strip casinos. On the main strip casinos, you're probably going to end up betting at least $25 or even $100 a hand to get that. So unless you're kind of a high roller to start with, it's maybe not as great as it used to be. The other game traditionally that gives the player a really good chance is craps. Craps is so complicated. Again, you could do not 15 minutes on craps, but 15 hours talking about all of the different bets, different variations that go with that. If you're not familiar, basically you throw dice and you try to hit certain points. If you do decide that craps might be a game you'd like to play, again, do some research. Learn about the game, learn about the bets. Traditionally, the best bet in craps is the pass line or the don't pass line. And that, again, like the old blackjack, 3-2 blackjack games, would pay back probably around 98%. And in some cases, you can also take odds. Again, way beyond the scope of this program, but craps can be a very good game. It can be a really fun game too, particularly if you're a sociable person and you like to hang out, like to really feel like you're involved playing the game. Frankly, a lot of the other table games in the casino, including an old favorite, roulette, don't tend to be that great in terms of their payback percentage. Roulette's usually around the 95% range, but it can be a really fun game if you like to bet numbers. Sometimes you can bet a fairly small amount and win a fairly big amount if your number happens to come in. There's a lot of what you might almost call carnival games. In fact, you even see the game War once in a while. There's like variations on poker, Texas Hold'em, Let It Ride, things like that. Generally, they're kind of gimmicky. They frequently offer some kind of jackpot, but at the cost of lower paybacks for just regular play. So they may be games you want to steer clear of. Speaking of which, you definitely don't want that old big six wheel. Typically, if you walk into a casino, you'll see a very pretty girl and a wheel, and there'll be a number of different options there. You can bet that you're going to win $1 or $10 or $20. Really doesn't pay back very well. Same thing could also be said of Keno, the live Keno, which is not that easy to find anymore. The thing about a Keno game, though, is it tends to go pretty slowly. You can often bet as little as $1 every 10-15 minutes, and you get pretty good attention from the cocktail waitresses. And like the regular Keno game on the machines, it also gives you an occasional pretty big payback. Another game you might want to consider in the casino is the Pai Gow Poker. It is a game that it kind of moves slowly. It has a lot of hands that are basically draws. So it is one of those games where you can maximize your seat time. You're probably not going to win a lot of money, but you may be able to play longer, and that could certainly be a lot of fun. One interesting variation we're seeing in a lot of casinos, in fact, it's more than a variation, it's definitely a trend, is that you can play a lot of these table games now on machines. Sometimes they'll have it set up kind of in a stadium format where you'll look up and there'll be kind of a big screen that'll show you what's happening, whether it's a blackjack game, roulette, craps, whatever. Again, keep an eye on the payback percentages here. Sometimes they can be less than what you get in a machine, but it's also a little less intimidating than playing with other people. So it can be a good way to learn a game, learn about the bets, and get comfortable with it. Of course, I've studiously avoided a couple of games in the casino that you could potentially win at. One of those is live poker. But again, it's going to take a lot of skill, a lot of time, a lot of practice to get good at poker. It takes a very mathematical brain and also really a mastery of human psychology. I'm sure most of you have seen the game played on ESPN or other various sports channels. If it's a game that you already know how to play and play well, it's something you may want to try in the casino. There's typically a lot of low-risk tournaments, so you can check out your level there. The other is race and sports betting. You can bet on horse races. You can bet on practically any sporting event out there. More and more people are doing this just in their home states because a lot of states have legalized sports betting. If it's something that you're good at, or if it's just something that you want to kill some time with, it does kind of change the game if you have a few dollars riding on it. So put $20 on your favorite team, sit back and spend 3 hours watching the game. Hey, you might get a free drink and you might win some money. You'll probably have a good time. Whatever you do whenever you're gambling in a casino, make sure that you use your player's card. Either put it in the machine or give it to the dealer or the pit boss so that your play can be recorded, because that's the way you can get a lot of complimentary things, including food, beverage, and free rooms. We'll be back next week with another episode of Vegas Tips and Tricks Weekly. Until then, I hope that you have a great, lucky, and healthy week. We'll see you all again real soon. Bye-bye.